Imagine this, you're standing on the weathered porch of a house that holds more ghosts than memories, heart pounding like a storm-tossed wave against the shore. Your ex's mom, the woman who once baked you apple pies and called you son, opens the door with a smile that's equal parts warmth and sorrow. She looks you dead in the eye and whispers, "Want to see?" And in that split second, you don't blink. You don't run. Because deep down, you know this moment could shatter the walls you've built around your broken heart, or finally set it free. What she shows you next. It changes everything. Stick with me, by the end, you'll feel the weight lift off your own chest, too. Alex had always loved the sea. Growing up in the sleepy coastal town of Willow Bay, North Carolina, the ocean was his constant companion, a vast, unforgiving mirror of his own turbulent soul. The waves crashed with a rhythm that matched his heartbeat, especially on nights when sleep evaded him. But now, at 32, returning after 5 long years away, the sea felt like an old enemy mocking his failures. He'd left Willow Bay in a haze of heartbreak, fleeing the ruins of his relationship with Rachel, the girl who'd been his everything since high school. They met at a bonfire on the beach, her laughter cutting through the crackle of flames like sunlight piercing clouds. She was vibrant, with freckles like scattered stars and eyes that held the depth of the Atlantic. Alex, quieter and more introspective, found in her a spark that ignited his dreams. They built a life together, or so he thought, sharing lazy Sundays fishing off the pier, whispering promises under the stars, and planning a future that included a little house with a view of the waves. But love, as Alex learned the hard way, isn't always enough to weather the storms. Rachel came from a family rooted deep in Willow Bay's traditions, her father a fisherman lost to the sea when she was young, her mother Margaret a pillar of quiet strength who ran the local bakery with a gentle hand and a listening ear. Rachel inherited her mother's resilience but also a fear of being trapped, of repeating the cycle of loss that haunted her childhood. Alex, on the other hand, carried his own baggage, a father who abandoned him early, leaving him with a gnawing insecurity that he wasn't worth staying for. Their differences, once charming, became chasms. Arguments escalated over small things, his late nights at the marina fixing boats, her growing restlessness with the town's unchanging horizon. One fateful evening, after a particularly brutal fight where words cut deeper than any knife, Rachel packed her bags. "I can't breathe here anymore, Alex," she'd said, tears streaming down her face. "And you're drowning with me." He begged her to stay, but she left for the city, chasing a life of lights and possibilities that Willow Bay could never offer. The breakup shattered Alex. He blamed himself entirely, for not being exciting enough, for not fighting harder, for letting his fears turn him into an anchor rather than a sail. Nights blurred into days of numbness, he threw himself into work, eventually moving to Raleigh for a job in construction, building homes for others while his own foundation crumbled. Friends tried to set him up, but every date felt like a betrayal of the love he'd lost. He dated sporadically, but his heart remained anchored in the past, replaying what-ifs like a broken record. Therapy helped a little, teaching him to name his pain, but closure eluded him. Rachel, from what he heard through mutual friends, had moved on, new job, new city, even whispers of a new relationship. It stung, but he wished her well in silence. Then, out of the blue, a letter arrived. Handwritten on cream stationery that smelled faintly of lavender, it was from Margaret. "Dear Alex," it began, her elegant script steady despite her age. "It's been too long. I've thought of you often. If you're ever back in Willow Bay, please come by the house. There's tea on the stove and stories waiting. With love, Margaret." No mention of Rachel, no hints of why now. But something in those words pulled at him like a tide. Was it curiosity? Desperation? Or just the need to face the ghosts? Alex packed a bag that weekend, driving the familiar coastal highway with the windows down, the salt air whipping through his hair. As he pulled into Willow Bay, the town looked unchanged, the lighthouse standing sentinel, the bakery's sign faded but welcoming. His heart raced as he approached the old Victorian house on the bluff, overlooking the sea. Knocking on the door, he half expected Rachel to answer, but it was Margaret, her silver hair tied back, eyes crinkling with a mix of joy and something deeper, unspoken. "Alex, my boy," she said, pulling him into a hug that felt like home. "Come in. We've got catching up to do." They sat in the sunlit kitchen, the same one where he'd shared countless meals. Margaret poured tea, her hands steady but her voice laced with emotion. She asked about his life, his work, listening with the patience of someone who'd weathered her own losses. Alex opened up more than he intended, about the emptiness, the self-doubt that had followed him like a shadow. "I failed her, Margaret," he confessed, staring into his cup. "I wasn't enough." She reached across the table, her touch warm. "Oh, Alex. It's not that simple." The conversation flowed, memories resurfacing like driftwood on the shore. But as the afternoon waned, Margaret's expression shifted. She excused herself briefly, returning with a small wooden box, its lid engraved with seashells. Placing it on the table, she smiled, that enigmatic smile, and said softly, "Want to see?" Alex's breath caught. He nodded, not blinking, as she opened the box, revealing a stack of letters, yellowed with time. "These are from Rachel," she explained. "She wrote them after she left. But she never sent them. I think it's time you knew the truth." The letters unfolded like petals of a forgotten flower, each one a window into Rachel's soul that Alex had never glimpsed. The first was dated just weeks after she left, her handwriting shaky. "Dear Alex, I miss the sound of the waves at night. I miss you. But I'm scared that if I stayed, I'd become like Mom, waiting for someone who never comes back. It's not you, it's me, carrying this fear like a stone in my chest." As Alex read, tears blurred the ink. Rachel had poured out her regrets, the pressure of her father's absence, how it made her push people away before they could leave her. Another letter confessed her attempts to call him, only to hang up, paralyzed by guilt. "I blamed you for holding me back," she wrote in one, "but really, I was holding myself prisoner. You deserved better than my chaos." There were lighter moments too, sketches of city skylines she'd drawn, reminders of inside jokes they'd shared. But threaded through it all was her journey, therapy sessions where she unpacked her traumas, a failed rebound relationship that taught her about true vulnerability, and finally, a quiet acceptance that their love, though real, had been timed wrong. Margaret watched him read, her own eyes misty. "She gave these to me before she moved abroad last year," she said. "For a job in Europe. She wanted me to burn them, but I couldn't. Not when I saw how much pain you both carried." Alex felt a whirlwind inside, anger at Rachel for not sharing this sooner, relief that he wasn't the sole villain in their story, and a profound sadness for the years lost to misunderstanding. "Why show me now?" he asked, voice cracking. Margaret sighed, looking out at the sea. "Because healing isn't just for the one who leaves, Alex. It's for the one left behind, too." Rachel found her peace. "I think it's your turn." They talked late into the evening, Margaret sharing her own story of losing her husband, how she'd learned to forgive the sea, and herself, for what it took. "We all carry unsent letters in our hearts," she said. "The key is finding the courage to read them aloud." That night, Alex walked the beach alone, the letters tucked in his pocket like talismans. The waves whispered secrets, and for the first time, he listened without resentment. He realized his self-blame had been a cage, one he'd built to protect himself from the truth. Relationships end not always from fault, but from growth in different directions. Rachel's words freed him from the narrative of inadequacy. He saw now that they'd both been young, flawed, doing their best with the tools they had. By morning, as the sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of hope, Alex felt lighter. He returned to Margaret's for breakfast, hugging her tightly. "Thank you," he whispered. "For showing me." She smiled, that same knowing smile. "Go live your life, Alex. And remember, the sea always brings back what belongs." Months later, Alex stayed in Willow Bay, reopening his boat repair shop with renewed purpose. He dated again, this time without the ghosts hovering. He even wrote a letter to Rachel, not to send, but to release, thanking her for the love that shaped him. Life moved forward, waves ebbing and flowing, teaching him that closure isn't about erasing the past, but embracing it as part of the journey. And in that embrace, he found not just forgiveness for her, but for himself. The inspiring truth? No matter how deep the wounds, time and quiet revelations can mend them. You don't need grand gestures or dramatic reunions. Sometimes, a simple, "want to see," is enough to illuminate the path to healing. So, if you're holding on to pain today, let this be your nudge. Open that box. Read those letters. And let the light in.